Men, and I use the term loosely. I think it's day 8 over here. I got 2 wheels, well, the 2 wheels I put together yesterday to true up. First one is in the truing stand. Harley wheels have 40 spokes, so I divide the wheel into 10 segments of 4. So you got 4, 4, 4, 4, and in order to keep track of where I am, I number them 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. So there's 10 groups of 4. The manual tells you to take the hop out of the wheel first, and the hop is the up and down, and then take the side to side out. So I don't know if I'm going to show you the whole truing process or not, because frankly it's pretty boring, but this is basically how I set up to do it. So when I spin this wheel, it starts rubbing in 3 in group 3. And your results should be repeatable. So what I'm going to do to start off is I'm going to tighten the spokes in groups 6 and 8, which are opposite of 3, and it should begin to push the wheel in the direction it needs to go. And since I haven't done anything to it since I roughly put them in, the spokes are probably going to be pretty loose. But anyway, you know, get started. And usually I tighten them just a half a turn at a time. And we'll see where the hop is again. Okay, it's still rubbing at 3, although not as much as it used to. So we're going to tighten up 8 and 9 one more time. And they're actually beginning to feel a little snug over here. Okay, and 3 still rubs a little bit, so I'm going to actually loosen up 3 this time. Oh yeah, and that is kind of tight. Tighter than I would have thought it would be. Okay, and 3 is not rubbing at all right now. Once I get it to a condition where nothing is rubbing, I have my indicator, which is nothing more than a threaded rod and a piece of steel bar, and I move it a little closer. Now we're rubbing a little bit in 5. 4 to 5, so I think I'm going to loosen these all about a half a turn. And basically, I'm checking in against this shoulder here. Rims, I find, have too much variation out on the end, you know, on this edge. They're kind of wavy. So I like to go towards the middle, where it's a little less irregular, so to speak. We're rubbing a little bit on 4 and 5, still going to loosen those up another half a turn. Actually, it'd be 3 and 4. This spoke is unusually tight. Anyway, you get the idea. You got to have patience, be prepared for this to take a while, and it's just a matter of going round and round until you get the hop out. So I'm going to get the hop out, and I'll bring it back when I go to do the left and the right, the wobble. I've been diddle fucking with this wheel about, I don't know, a half hour, 20 minutes. And the book says to get the hop within a 32nd of an inch. 32nd of an inch is about 32 thousandths. I got a 32 thousandths feeler gauge. So here's my indicator. There's a little bit of a gap there. There's nowhere on the rim where the wheel is rubbing, where the rim is rubbing, and there's nowhere on the wheel where the 032 feeler gauge will slip in. So the hop part of it is good. We're going to go after the radial, the wobble, next. When you're trying to take the hop out of a wheel, you loosen or tighten all 4 spokes in a group at the same time. Right now I'm going to go after the wobble. So you're either going to tighten or loosen the spokes on one side of a group at a time. If this is rubbing over here, I may actually at some point tighten the spokes on the opposite side, and that'll twist the wheel a little bit to get the rub out of it. But for our initial stages over here, like right here, the indicator is rubbing. So we're going to tighten these spokes, the spokes on the opposite side, about a half a turn. Okay, and it's not rubbing there. So it's rubbing over here. We'll keep tightening about a half a turn. And that's basically the process. I'll go around and around, tightening and loosening until I got my 32 thousandths of clearance between the indicator and the rim. Okay, this rim is really a bad teaching example. It's trued very easily and very quickly. I've done the side to side and the hop and the wobble, and right now there's nowhere on the rim where a 30 thousandths feeler gauge will fit between the indicator point and the rim, and there's nowhere where the indicator point is rubbing. So this wheel is true within 32 thousandths of an inch. The next step is to verify torque. So I've got a torque wrench, and we're going to torque all these up to make sure they're even. The Harley manual doesn't specify a torque, but we're going to go for 40 inch-pounds, which should be a good number. I get that off of the dirt bike guys, and you know, those guys are flying over hills and hops and jumps and everything else, and 40 works for them, so this should work for a mildly driven, normal horsepower street bike. This is what I use for torquing spokes with. RKXL. I'm sure there's other brands on the market. You get the torque wrench, several sockets for it, crow's feet I guess you'll call them. It works pretty good. I've been happy with it. One thing I don't like is the scales are anodized and they're not a very contrasting color. They're a little bit hard to read, but the torque wrench seems to work pretty well. I've developed a sequence for torquing up spokes. Harley doesn't give you a torque value, and there's no sequence in their manual, but to me this makes sense. If you started at group 1 and you just went all the way around, you'd be tightening, and you'd be kind of forcing a hump around the wheel, and I don't think it would work for you. I mean, it'd drive the wheel out around is what it was doing. So anyway, I start tightening group 1, then I skip to the opposite side and do group 6, then I skip over to group 3, go to the opposite side of the wheel and do group 8, then I go to group 5, hop over to the other side of the wheel and do group 10, then I go to group 2, go to the other side of the wheel and do group 7, then I go to group 4, go to the other side of the wheel and do group 9. Point being to distribute the torque evenly around the wheel so that you don't drive it out around while you're torquing it. Works for me. And if you've wondered why, well, if you've wondered why I numbered the groups of spokes, this is why, so I can keep track of the torque value. So go over here to group 1 and do it first. I will skip over to group 6, and you hear my indicator started to rub. After I get done torquing around, I'm going to go back and re-true as necessary. Alright, been around the whole wheel. Obviously I got a little rub here. I'm going to readjust the true a little bit, which will of course increase the torque on some spokes and decrease the torque on other spokes, which of course is one of the reasons you bring the torque up in steps and you go around several times to get it. So I'm going to go off camera, readjust the true on this. Alright, I've gone around the wheel a couple of times. You can hear that it's not rubbing, and there's nowhere on the wheel where the 30 thou feeler gauge will fit between the pointer and the wheel rim. So this is good to go still, very happy with it. I'm going to go around and increase the torque to the next increment, and I'll do that off camera. I'll bring it back a little bit. Okay, I think I was up to 26 inch-pounds. When I tightened the spokes that time, the wheel stayed true, which as the torque increases and becomes more even around the wheel, that's what you'd expect. So the wheel doesn't touch anywhere, and same as before, there's nowhere that I could put a 30 thousandths gauge between the pointer and the wheel rim. So this wheel is, like I say, this wheel's been exceptionally easy. So I'm going to go up another value. I think I'm going to go to 35 this time, and we'll see what happens. All right, I'm up to 35 inch-pounds on the spokes. I did have to tweak, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 spokes to bring it back into true. But once again, the pointer's not rubbing and I can't get my feeler gauge in. Whoops, I heard a little rub. Right there. And usually all you have to do is go to the opposite side and give it a little tweak. by the time you're at this stage, it's small adjustments are usually all that's required. So we're going to go up to 40, and that'll do it on this wheel. All right, I'm up to 40 inch-pounds, and I did have to tweak 3 or 4 spokes, like a quarter of a turn, not even a quarter of a turn, but once again, it doesn't rub, and I can't get my 30 thousandths gauge between the pointer on the indicator and the rim. So this rim is good to go. I expect as it bounces down the road, it probably will change a little bit, and it probably needs to get tweaked a little bit, you know, in 500 miles or whatever. This is a Chinese rim. It's really not too bad of a quality. I can feel a little waviness on the edges, which is to be expected. And a lot of rims are welded, and there's always a hump where the weld is. Yeah, and here's the weld on this one. The weld on this one is right here where my finger is. I could see it on the inside, but I can't see it on the outside. But anyway, if you're doing these wheels, there are irregularities in the rims a lot of the time. And you got to learn to kind of ignore those, because that's not really part of truing. I mean, you can't, you know, if this has got a ripple in it, you can't true that out, you know. But anyway, very happy with that. Oh, and by the way, that's why I don't do used rims for people. People want to, you know, say, well, I got a used rim, put it on. I ain't doing it. You just, on a used rim, you just don't know what you got. But anyway, I'm very happy with this. Worked out well. I had a semi-major fuck up. I ordered the wrong spokes for the rear wheel, which of course I discovered after I put the wheel together. So I had to take it all apart again, order the right shit. Well, I'll order the right shit probably tomorrow. But in the meantime, I've got everything I need to put these forks together. And these forks are a giant pain in the balls. You got to have all the right shit in the right places. So you got to have your booty on. You got to have your felt washer on. You got to have your retainers and seals for the fork boot. The fork boot shoves up in there. The fork shoves up in there. The fork boot stays on the bottom. You got to have your lower fork cover. You got to have your seal for the chrome tube. You got to have your chrome tube. The other fork is in just to kind of hang on to things, help keep it in alignment. And you know what? This has to be under here. Jesus Christ. Then this goes on. But there's not a lot of room for it. Not a lot of room at all. And you got to have the upper rubber seal in. Fuck. Suppose I need to take this out and make sure that the seal's not getting fucked up. It did get, well, no, maybe it didn't. Okay. I could start shoving this up there. Need a little more clearance on the top triple clamp. Yeah, I might need some oil. Yikes. Yeah, and this is dislodged. All right, let's try again. Fork tube. Lower seal. A little lube on the lower seal so it'll slide over the fork tube. Clamp cover. Oh, that fit. Good. Now let's see if I could shove this tube up in there. Oh yeah, lube makes all the difference. Okay. Now the upper seal. Little loop for the upper seal. And let's see if I could shove the tube the rest of the way in. I think I got it. Cool. It's in there. I should probably fill it with oil next. Okay, the book says 4.5 ounces. There's that inner cap in there, and it's got 2 small holes in it. And if I'm lucky, I maybe could stroke this fork tube just a little bit. Ooh, that's working. Yeah, this is going to take forever, yeah. I'm only spilling a little bit so far. We're going to grab a scotch more to make up for what I think I spilled. And one more little insurance dose. That's probably 4.5, plus or minus a little. And now I could put the cap on. I could even tighten the cap up. You got to be careful in the order in which you tighten all this shit up. So the first thing we're going to do is draw the fork tube. We're going to draw the fork tube up into the upper tree. If you were to tighten the pinch bolts first, you might not be able to draw the fork tube all the way up. All right, that one is on. Got to do the other one now. I'm going to spare you watching that. It'll be the same as the first one. I'm going to tighten this cap nut down one more time. I've done this like 3 times and it hasn't moved the barrel nut at all. We're going to squish the rubber O-rings and get the triple clamp down on top of the spacer. You could see it compressing in there. Okay, I'm bottomed out. Man, these O-rings are bursting at the seam, but you know what? I think we're going to leave them bursting at the seams. That's tight. Front end still feels good. We're going to tighten the pinch bolt. All right. That feels good. Now I could tighten these. Okay, now the front end is secure. Whew. Man. Well, here's the outro for today, whatever day it was, 7/8. I don't remember. These boots absolutely kicked my ass. I've installed several sets of these over the years, and I'm usually able to wrestle them on over that piece of tin right there. For whatever reason, I could not wrestle these on. I ended up taking the front end just about completely apart again, took the tubes out, and I was able to put the boots on over these little tin retainers with the fork tubes off because I could get a hand on the inside and a hand on the outside. So after much dicking around, the boots are on. I had commented that it had squished the living bejesus out of these seals at the top and bottom of these chrome covers. In order to alleviate that, I made a slightly taller spacer for under the triple clamp, 60 thousandths taller. So the triple clamp is raised 60 thousandths, which means the front of the bike is going to sit 60 thousandths of an inch lower than it used to. I'm still squeezing a bejesus out of these washers. You know, these are James seals, washers, whatever you want to call them. Whether they were mismanufactured, whether they were that way from Harley, I don't know, but I went through my O-rings. I didn't have, suitably sized O-rings to use in there instead. So it is what it is. But anyway, it's together. The bike is of much fewer pieces than it used to be. Oh, if I didn't mention it before, I bought the wrong size spokes for the rear wheel. I got a deep drop center rim, and because the drop is so deep, it uses shorter spokes. So I got a set of just ever so slightly used. I mean, they were installed and removed almost immediately when I realized they were too long. But I got a set of stainless steel spokes for an 18-inch wheel on a Harley spool hub, except you need to use this shallow drop rim with those. So, that wastes a lot of time there, wastes a lot of time doing this. If the owner, Mark, is watching, don't worry. I'm not going to charge you for the redos, just for the first time around. So that'll be good. Anyway, front wheel trued up nicely. Real happy with that. Decent quality rim from V-Twin. The rear rim is pretty decent quality too. So we'll get a tire put on later. I think tomorrow I'm going to come out here. Might be able to get the swing arm on. Might be able to get the rest of the wiring done up around the handlebars over here. I bolted the new carbine, new 38 millimeter adjustable main jet Bendix. I like those. I dug through my shit and I actually found a new bracket for the choke cable and the horn, which this bike is going to need because it's got a different choke arrangement than the Tillotson had on it. So yeah, things are coming along painfully, a little slowly right now, but I think the worst is behind me. Bear in mind, I'm still going to pull the front rocker box off because I got a little seep down in the front. Going to pull the primary off, probably change the clutch plates. I did have this running and driving, and the clutch is a little funky. And I can only assume it's because the basket has leaked and it's been soaking in oil for the past 20 years or whatever. But yeah, backbone wiring harness is done. I might have did that yesterday. I don't remember whether I did that yesterday or today. But yeah, it's actually coming along. I'm pretty happy with the progress. If I hadn't ordered the wrong spokes, I think I'd be driving it in a week. But as it is, it's going to take, 4 or 5 days for spokes to get here, and I got to put the wheel together. But anyway, should we get the swing arm, maybe finish up the wiring. I don't know, maybe tear the primary off and see what's going on with the clutch. But yeah, it's coming along. Anyway, long, hard day, and with that, I am out of here. Hey, y'all take it easy. We'll see you next time, and thank you all ever so much for watching. Bye. Just a quick reminder, you can help support and grow this channel, first of all and most importantly, by hitting that subscribe button. So if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to do a little more, join me on Patreon. Links down below. So go ahead and join me on Patreon if you feel so inclined. And finally, coffee cups, stickers, and gas tank covers are available. This is a new design coffee cup. I like the old ones, but I like these new ones even better. Links will be provided in the description down below. Get yourself some. And thank you all ever so much for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. Bye.